In the centre of England, an hour west of Birmingham, underneath Kidderminster, lies an underground maze of tunnels known as Drakelow. Known as one of the most haunted locations within the UK, the paranormal activity here ranges from disembodied voices to shadow figures and even things moving on their own. From the cry of patients to small children being heard in the hospital area, to 1940s music echoing through the maze of tunnels. People have experienced intense feelings of unease, witnessed shadow figures, full-bodied apparitions, and in some cases, even possession.
There's so many things which go on, you know, just the footsteps coming up behind you.
The whole spectrum of activity was happening in the tunnels.
What I'm doing is I'm watching.
There's a hello.
Sounded like a big metal door slamming. We were all accounted for, nobody else around.
What was that?
What was the flash?
What was that flash?
I've never seen that before.
Me neither. I watched the footage back from that day, and it's gut-wrenching. It chills you to the core.
Like force on my shoulders, and I was literally down off the ladder. I just seemed to come down with such force, so much so, broke my leg in two places and crushed my ankle.
We got a change in the
Hello.
middle gauss.
Thank you.
Again.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. It was the most terrifying moment I have ever experienced on an investigation.
That was rubbish, the story about 4 or 5 people dying. On one day, about 20 stretchers went past him with sheets over the bodies. There was a big cover-up in those times about the truth about what happened.
After months of prep and research, my team and I were ready to spend a week locked inside Drakelow Tunnels. So let's head back to the team. Okay. I'm eager to share this with them as well, just give them this folder to go through so they know exactly what we know. This is just kind of like a breakdown of all the main points that we need to focus on. But I think we have a lot to go on, and this book's going to take some time to go through as well.
Family moved here right adjacent to the site in about 1969, and so basically I sort of grew up knowing that there was an underground factory here, and then there's all this mystery surrounded by it. And at the time there used to be these fabulous buildings and one up in the woods, and it was known as Little Switzerland, and there was a schoolhouse chapel. So it was a fascinating sort of place to explore. Yeah, so in about 1982 they knocked all the surface buildings down. And I used to sit up on the bank above this and watch all the lorries coming in, and saw probably hundreds of tons of bricks and all sorts of equipment being reversed down this tunnel we're sat in now. And obviously that would transpire that they were renovating the place and turning it into a nuclear bunker.
But a nuclear bunker isn't the only secret these tunnels hold.
And that's how it was up until 1995. And then at the end of the Cold War, it was put up for sale. So what we use it for now is we do sort of obviously paranormal events. We've done pop videos. We do all sorts of filming, airsoft events, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So many people come on visits, not just with paranormal events, but we do general guided tours. So a lot of people come in, and sometimes people are embarrassed to say, "Oh, I feel a bit silly, but this, that and the other happened to me." And it's like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I've seen it, I've experienced it. So there's so many things which go on. You know, just the footsteps coming up behind you. You can get sort of, you feel like the presence of somebody against the side of your face as they walk past. You know, the chit chat, and in the past I've heard music playing over by the old canteen. It is just every time you come in, something different sort of happens. Yeah, I'm not comfortable on my own. I'm not going to lie. It is sort of quite unnerving. I'm not a big fan of being on my own in here. Yeah, during the construction of the tunnels, there was a cave-in. They put too much explosive in, and also the original design of the sort of roof shape, which is supposed to be to support the ceiling, they hadn't got it right, and they caused a collapse. 4 guys were sort of 2 were crushed, dead instantly. 2 others taken to hospital. They didn't survive. But on top of that, there was another couple of guys who'd gone out on the conveyors, which went across the tunnels, and then all the spoil was automatically tipped into sort of low-lying ground opposite, and they got mangled up in the auto-tip mechanism, so they died. And then there was a lady who got hit by a dumper truck. And another chap at the end of his shift went cycling out the gates, and one of the buses, obviously there was 700 people working in here, so they had to have a lot of people coming in and out every day, a lot of buses, and this chap on his bicycle got hit by a bus and died. But we'd recently been told by a chap who came on one of our tours that his granddad worked here for many years, and he said that was rubbish, the story about 4 or 5 people dying. He said, no, he said there was way more than that. He said on one day, about 20 stretchers went past him with sheets over the bodies. So clearly, I think there was a big cover-up in those times about the truth about what happened. It's all on one level, and the longest tunnel is a 1/4 mile in length. Then there's 4 parallel tunnels to that, and then there's another 4 going across, with lots of little ones in between. So it's 285,000 square feet, and depends how lost you get, it can be about 4.5, 5 miles in the dark.
I'd heard from other people about how many paranormal experiences they'd had and what sort of things went on in the tunnel system. And so I organized this little team get-together just to come in, mess around, investigate, have some fun, explore somewhere new. Nothing can prepare you for the vastness of this tunnel system. It is more intense than you could ever explain. No one and nothing can prepare you for this place.
Well, the only time I've ever been to Drakelow Tunnel was on an investigation with several of my friends. And we decided to come up here, meet, and just have the place to ourselves for the whole night till 5 a.m.
I'd never been to Drakelow Tunnels before, but I'd heard the activity at the tunnels was quite amazing. Shadows, a lot of distant voices, movement, stones, the whole spectrum of activity was happening in the tunnels.
We get in, and it's very atmospheric. So again, oh yeah, this is going to be a good night. We're going to get some really great evidence. Took us about a half hour to get all set up, and then it started getting really strange and scary.
As we were walking down the main tunnel, we heard a distant woman's cackle. It was quite sinister. It was a bit like an old witch. It really resonated around the tunnels. We weren't expecting so quickly to get activity.
We couldn't decide at first if it was a growl or if it was a cackle, and then when we listened back, you could hear it just was like a mad cackling noise.
We ended up at this junction with a hole in the wall, and the energy started turning a little bit intense. It got a bit oppressive in that area.
All of a sudden, out of nowhere, out of the darkness, we heard this very deep vocal growl. It sounded like there was an animal or a dog or something. It was a real guttural growl.
So we started going down some of the side tunnels, and as we were going down those tunnels, we were starting to get little things happen at first, like the stones being thrown at us. And Carl, to lighten the mood a little bit, stuck his hand through a pretty good size opening.
It wasn't until later on that I realised and noticed on my arm after I was getting dressed in the hotel, I had 3 long scratch marks all the way down my arm. Couldn't explain it. I was layered up. I hadn't touched my arm. It was just very, very strange, and I couldn't explain where these marks had come from.
And at that time, I was filming him, so I was holding the camera up here, and I felt something on my shoulder, just on my shoulder blade. It kind of started getting a bit warm and like this weird burning sensation. I didn't think anything of it. I had 4 layers of clothing on, and so I started stripping the layers off to kind of see what was going on. And we noticed that there were 3 scratches on my shoulder that drew blood.
Then it got really strange, and she just started acting weird. And it didn't really look much like her, it didn't sound like her.
She had this funny, distant look on her face. That is when I realised something more was going on the investigation, and it had turned to a different type of level.
I felt spaced out, like it wasn't me. I watched the footage back from that day, and it's gut-wrenching.
She had this funny look on her face. All of a sudden, in this voice, which wasn't MJ's voice, she just announced,
"I'm bored of this now." And it wasn't my facial expression, it didn't even look like me in any way. It didn't sound like me either. And to see yourself on camera where you look so different and you don't remember any of it happening, it chills you to the core.
We actually had to walk her out, and as we were walking her out, she was just stumbling all over, and it was really when things started to get scary.
all of a sudden I shouted something to MJ. She just turned round. The cameraman was stood next to me, who was filming us at the time. MJ looked at us, kind of cocked her head slightly, and had this very, very creepy smile on her face. I turned to the cameraman and went, "That's not MJ."
That's why.
When I said, like you were doing that,
Yeah.
you had your head cocked, and it wasn't your face.
Okay. I'm literally.
Thank you.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
I'm like shaky. My whole body.
What did you feel in there?
Thank you. It just didn't feel like me. I was fine until we heard that laugh.
We came back into the base room and regrouped, checked our equipment, and at that point asked MJ, "Do you want to continue?" Because we were really worried about what would happen if she went back in there again.
I didn't want to disappoint the team. And I thought, you know what? We're here for answers. So let's go back in. Let's see what we can get.
We took a break to pull ourselves together. We then came back into the tunnels and headed back to the base room. We were trying to work out what our plan of action was. As we were talking, out of the distance, out of the darkness, we heard this almighty metal bang.
It's literally just the whole atmosphere's changed to get the out. Just get out. What the is that?
Sounded like a big metal door slamming. We were all accounted for, nobody else around.
Well, if this can slam a door, a metal blast door, what could it do to one of us? Especially after what I had experienced.
Usually we'd go and investigate and find out that, but at this particular moment in time, nobody wanted to go anywhere near. We wanted to stay as one group. It was strange. It echoed round the tunnels. It was that loud.
At that point, we just kind of all looked at each other, wondered what the hell was going on. And I looked over, and MJ and one of the other teammates were talking and just turned to us and said, "That's it. We're calling this. It's not safe in here at this point."
But in that moment, that panic set in. And we just kind of grabbed our cases. We ran out towards that front door so quickly. There were cases being dropped everywhere.
We seemed to be rushing down the corridor to get to the open space, to get to the front door. That one person behind us kept on saying, just keep moving, don't drop anything, just get out.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. It was the most terrifying moment I have ever experienced on an investigation.
We seemed to rush out, we seemed to pile out in one big lump going out the door. Cases, equipment cases were just flying out all over the place.
I got out the door before one of the teammates who had a camera pack, and he stumbled, and at one point we saw his camera bag come back like somebody was yanking him backwards just as he got to the door.
Everybody was outside.
I remember slamming the door closed and locking it, and something hitting the other side of the door with such force that it shook the door.
It was terrifying. And I saw people cry that night with emotion.
There was nothing else in Drakelow with us, or so we thought. There was nothing human in Drakelow with us.
It was an elemental that was chasing us that was very dog-like.
We packed the cars and we drove to the main gate. As I was driving out, my electrics of my brand new car completely stopped. I didn't have any power, I didn't have any steering, I didn't have any brakes. I couldn't understand it. I'm trying to turn the engine back on and it wasn't having any of it. I rolled on into the main road. As I hit the main road, my car just sprung into life again.
And as we finally, after several attempts of getting out of the parking lot, after we finally got out of the parking lot, she said she could see it kind of following along with us as we were leaving.
Out of the corner of my eye, we saw a shadow on the hillside. It was dark, it was black, and it was following us. At that moment, I just put my foot down and drove off to put as many miles between me and Drakelow Tunnels.
During our walkthrough with Sid, we were eager to find out as much about his paranormal experiences as possible, as well as the level of activity we could expect from our investigation.
This is a particularly sort of creepy area for myself. On a number of occasions, I've come literally to investigate it. Well, come and looked because you can hear what sounds like music playing, which is totally bizarre because there's no way it could. And on another occasion, I was with a couple, we were around the corner, and it was like somebody had slammed one of the oven doors, something really loud, several times, and that's
interesting because several people have said that they've heard like a door banging in this area. We've actually heard what sounded like a metal door.
Yeah, on
several occasions.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's it. That's what I heard.
So it's interesting to think that, because I never once thought it might be a oven door or something.
No.
Because you think it's one of the main doors.
Yeah, it does sound like the main door. It sounds that solid and that heavy, but really on reflecting, this is probably the most likely place in one of the doors on one of the steam ovens or
that's good to know.
Which could be that.
Yeah, definitely.
The investigation.
Yeah.
The music that you heard playing, so did you ever try and find the source of the music, or?
I did come and have a look. Came to try to find out what it might be, but generally, if you hear something down here, by the time you've got to where you think the source of the noise is, you get it and it'll stop. So no, I couldn't find where it was from, but it was 100% in the background. You could hear this music. It was, yeah.
So what type of music, like 1940s,
Yeah.
back in that era? Or?
Yeah, it was older music rather than modern. And it was not the type of thing you'd hear, coming out of Radio 1.
What other experiences have you had in Drakelow that really stand out?
I think the first one was when I saw the very distinctive shadow of a figure leaning against the wall. Looked like he was rolling a cigarette, and he stood up, lit it, and just walked off down the tunnel. And I was transfixed. I was just staring at the wall, because I couldn't believe what was happening. And in my own mind, I was thinking, right, somebody's come in. I've left the door open. Somebody's walked in, and there's explanation, but. There wasn't, it wasn't actually a person, but it was quite clear.
And they weren't aware of you? They didn't look at you or anything like that?
They were watching, obviously they were watching me.
Oh, they were watching you?
And then he walked off when I sort of turned and looked back at them. But that's twice it's happened. And then the second time, there was two of the witnesses saw him. Because they were looking the other way, and I said, what are you looking at? And they were, that bloke down there.
Okay.
The chaplain on
so
the wall.
whereabouts does this happen in the...
That particular one is over in Tunnel 1, which is on the
far
south
side.
side, yeah. And I think that's where the cave-in was when
Yeah.
several people died.
Really interesting. I've heard from so many other groups that have had experiences with like a full-bodied apparition, or they've seen a misty figure on camera sort of run through the tunnels, and you can hear the footsteps at the same time.
Oh yeah, the footsteps, that's a regular occurrence. You know, if I come in here and I don't hear the footsteps, you know, that's unusual.
That's amazing.
That's how common those noises are.
So
you know,
a lot
and
of
chattering as well. That's
Yeah.
voices. You think there's somebody coming towards you, or there's somebody coming, or a couple of people come through the doorway because you can hear them talking to each other, and you stop and you're like, somebody here. Nah. An occasion where somebody had sent me a photograph, and it looked like somebody was sat down again. It looked like the figure I'd seen. Not long after that, I was showing somebody else around here, so a couple of friends, and I was telling them the story. And I said, generally people take 3 photographs, and quite often, like, you know, 2 of them or 1 of them will have something in it, which you don't see when you take the picture. A couple of days later, he said, "You're not going to believe this." And there's this chap, and it's quite clear. There's a chap there with a dog.
in the photo.
In the photograph, walking towards you, and it was.
I've just gone
clear,
cold. I actually have goosebumps on my
clear
face.
as a bell.
There's so many stories of, you may have heard them, with the dog man or elemental creature.
No, I've witnessed some of this stuff when somebody's like, you know, trying to brush past your leg. And
You've experienced it.
Oh yeah. I had something like trying to push past me, and it's sort of like a dog, but not a dog.
So you're one of many that has actually experienced that.
That's crazy. Oh, I've just gone funny. Just the idea that, you know, you've also been one of the many people who have experienced this elemental type dog-like creature thing. Because a lot of people have heard growls and things in these tunnels as well. So, you know, putting that together where you have the elemental aspect of this haunting, you have people who have taken a photograph of a guy with a dog-like thing in the photo next to him.
Because the security guard did have, you know, have a dog.
Interesting.
So that could be that
And it's all people
so maybe that was, maybe it's 2 different things.
Yeah, and it's all people that don't know each other as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so many different, we've spoken to probably like 20 or 30 different paranormal teams from around the UK, some international guys that have had the chance to investigate the tunnels, and everybody has such similar stories, but none of them know each other.
And it's people who are not in the paranormal field as well.
Yeah,
people who have just come for a visit.
Yeah.
We've heard the airsoft guys have had several experiences.
They have no
airsofters.
idea that it's haunted.
No, they come in and they come in for a game of airsoft, and you know, they quite often they'll have a group photograph, and there in the middle of them will be another figure, you know, a smoky figure outline. Yeah. And airsofters another time, they were chasing some chap. But, you know, they sort of went through this doorway, and they were like, got him cornered, and there was nobody in the room. And 2 of them had sort of followed this figure, thinking it was an opponent, and there was nobody there.
So I received an email from a gentleman that lives abroad. He came over to do some airsoft at Drakelow Tunnels a few years ago, probably about 10 years ago. And in his email, which I'll actually show you, he mentions that he never wants to be on camera. He doesn't want anybody to contact him after this. I've actually tried to email him back and get more out of him, and he just won't have any of it. He told me about a time that he came to play airsoft out here, and he was shot, and he had to walk back to the respawn camp. And he was walking through on his own, and he was shoved several times, like a really hard shunt, in between his shoulder blades that nearly knocked him off his feet on several occasions. And he said he was so creeped out because the temperature dropped massively, he could see his breath, it just became a really creepy walk back. He went back into the respawn area, he was kind of chilling out, gathering himself again. He said it was really light and busy in there, so he felt a bit safer. And he went back out again, and apparently there is an area, which I kind of have an idea of where this is, but a hole in the wall that he had to crawl through.
Yeah.
And as he was crawling through it, something grabbed his ankle and yanked him back. And he doesn't believe in the paranormal. This entity grabbed his ankle, yanked him back through the hole. He turned around and there was absolutely no one in the room behind him. And he says he just legged it. He went back to the base camp. He sat in the base waiting for everything to kind of be over. He refused to go back into the tunnels. and he said that he will never set foot in Drakelow Tunnels again. I want to talk about your most terrifying experience that you had here, because you actually ended up with a broken bone.
Yeah, 3.
3 broken bones.
Yeah.
So what happened?
I was just doing some maintenance. I was on a ladder, probably about 3-4 feet, if that, off the ground, and there was this almighty force on my shoulders, and I was literally down off the ladder, and I caught my foot on the edge of the curbstone.
Yeah.
You know, not even a great height, nothing, but it was. I just seemed to come down with such force. It was bizarre, but so much so, broke my leg in 2 places and crushed my ankle.
Oh my goodness.
So
Wow.
that was pretty scary.
That is pretty scary.
And then sort of being there for 15-20 minutes on the floor in the pitch black with my foot facing the other direction.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
That's
That
terrifying.
is horrible.
that wasn't good.
So who do you think is responsible for that?
Yeah, people laugh at me, but I think it's because it was, you know, the place had been sort of pretty much unused for years and years. You know, some of the paranormal will say it's because the spirits here didn't like me sort of organising events and doing the tours, and they felt like sort of stepping on their ground. So I don't know, but no, you just told that story about the guy being shoved in his back and being snatched back by his ankles, and you're not going to lie, it was like a big
Probably
force in there.
pushing you down on your shoulders.
Because let's face it, 3-4 feet high is nothing. You know, you jump off higher and bigger things and run around. Such force that it'd crush your leg. Seems quite extreme, doesn't it?
So we need to be careful.
Absolutely.
We need to be very careful.
I think you have suitably terrified the hell out of the 2 of us now, knowing that you fell off that ladder with such force of something pushing you off that. You know, you don't realise that you can have something physically harm you to that extent in this place. So it's made me really nervous for tonight's investigation. Thank you.
That's a pleasure. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
So I reckon we're going to head back to the base area and we're going to get ready for tonight's investigation.
Okay,
Wonderful.
let's do this.
Tonight is our first investigation of Drakelow Tunnels. While we have been here many times before, this evening we're going to focus on 2 areas that aren't often investigated. One of those areas is the medical centre. It's the hospital bit of the tunnel system. Now, a lot of people have reported seeing shadows in there, capturing EVPs, as well as great REM activity, which we've also experienced in the past. The other area we're going to focus on tonight is the old canteen, which is just down this corridor on the left-hand side. Usually, paranormal teams that come into the tunnel system to investigate use that place as a base room, so it's not often that they actually spend time in there. We have heard numerous reports of activity in that room, so this evening we're going to try and see if we can validate any of those with our own experiences and capture any of our own evidence. We haven't even started the investigation yet, so this is a little behind the scenes, and we've just had something really strange happen. This right here is our little tent for storing stuff / hair and makeup, because, you know, we have to. And I was just sat there in front of the heaters, just trying to warm up, took a sip of my drink, and had a mirror thrown at me. We cannot explain it. So the mirror is flat on the table, in the back, and I sat down on the chair, and it literally came launching off the table. So a bit behind the scenes. Can't always predict when we're going to have activity. So what we're going to do now is just record on the DR60 to see if we can get any EVPs and find out if anyone's here that would like to maybe own up to moving that, because that's quite a lot of energy to be able to move a mirror or an object that size with that force. I'm surprised it didn't break. So I'm just going to hit record on here. Something was just thrown at me while I was sitting on this chair, and I'd like the person who threw it to tell us either your name or why you decided to throw that at me. If you speak directly into this recorder, we'll be able to play this back and hear your voice. And I'm not too sure when the last time was that you actually heard your voice. Do you want to give it a try? Could you say hello? So what I'm doing is I'm watching this red dot. When it is steady, it's recording. The moment it's flashing, it means it's not recording any sound. And this, upon playback, will cut out any silence. So it's going to play back quite fast, and you won't hear those silent breaks in between. So I'm just going to hit playback now.
Recording at the tent in the entrance of Drakelow Tunnels. Something was just thrown at me while I was sitting on this chair, and I'd like the person who drew it to tell us either your name or why you decided to throw that at me. If you speak directly into this recorder, we'll be able to play this back and hear your voice. I'm not too sure when the last time was that you actually heard your voice. Do you want to give it a try? Could you say hello? What I'm doing is I'm watching this red
Okay,
and hear your
so
voice. I'm not too sure when the last time was that you actually heard your voice. Do you want to give it a try? Could you say hello? What I'm doing is I'm watching
there's a
this red
hello.
voice. I'm not too sure when the last time was that you actually heard your voice. Do you want to give it a try? Could you say hello?
So that's pretty interesting. So we have an EVP that kind of sounds like it's saying hello. It's really faint. It's not very clear, but it does mean that there is somebody else potentially here with us. Well, it's a great start. We haven't even started the investigation yet. So on that note, let's get to it, guys. The team and I head to the medical area to make contact with the matron who is said to still linger in the space. Our aim for the evening is to record the female voices heard by so many people in the hospital area, as well as for myself and Corin to attempt a tarot reading of the location. I think we should start with a tarot card, kind of a bit of an experiment. So I'm going to do 6 cards. I'm going to pull them here. We've both got our tarot decks on us. They're both the exact same deck. I'm going to pull 6 cards in here. You're going to pull 6 cards in the next door canteen area.
That's fine. I'll go where I'm out of earsight so we can see if
Perfect.
we get similar readings.
Absolutely. So we're going to try and focus on the energy of this particular area because we want to know who's here, what's here, and what we can expect this evening. I'm hoping that whoever is here will just give us a bit of information. Hopefully they'll let us know who they are or what sort of work they're doing or just kind of how they're feeling. Reading tarot cards is a technique that is not often used during a paranormal investigation, but it can really give you some additional insight as to who you might be dealing with. It can also help you build a better picture of their story. We're trying to establish what it was like working in Drakelow's Medical Centre and to see if our separate tarot readings can give us the same information. Hopefully we'll figure out who we're dealing with. I'm going to check on Corin. I'm going to see how her experiment is and maybe call her to come back here.
Yep.
Are you okay? I'm going to hit record.
Yep.
And I'm going to put this down over there.
Yep.
Just try and keep it absolute silence. Technically, if it's silent in here, it shouldn't record anything.
Nope.
So I'm going to leave this.
I'll just sit here.
You're right, leaving you alone?
Yeah, it'll be fine.
I'm taking the flashlight.
If you hear me scream, you hear me scream.
Okay. So this is the recording to see if Carl screams. I'll be back in a moment.
No problem.
Okay. During our investigations, we always do passive as well as active EVP sessions. Active EVP is asking questions and doing short burst sessions. Passive EVP is leaving a recorder running to see if you can capture any residual energy or additional conversations. It was time to head back to the old canteen to check on Corin and compare our notes.
They were very short of money. I think they sort of had something to do with the hospital, and the money that they were being offered, they just wanted to help the people in the hospital, if you know what I mean, rather than take the money. One of them had to move away, which I think was her partner, which left her very frustrated, very, very trapped. Especially here, you do feel very trapped because you can't get anywhere. And obviously emotions going up and down, which is the moon.
So I put my cards one side so I could show you mine. And in a way, there were a few things that were really similar.
Okay.
So I have mine put aside here. So mine was having the world in the palm of your hands and starting off with everything being okay and that sort of thing. And then everything going up in kind of turmoil, feeling really trapped and lonely.
Yep.
And then the money losses, things going up and down,
Yep.
and working in the hospital, like not so much for the money, but because of the love of it, for the love of her job. And then things kind of easing up, and I felt like she was the person that gave people a lot of hope in this place, not necessarily just because of the job that she did in the hospital area, but also because she just seemed like that kind of a light-hearted person that would bring a lot of joy to people. I keep seeing shadows, man. Every time I put a light down, I'm like, so jumpy in here. And then it was the fact that she was the star. She brought that brightness, she brought that hope. And then the ending of a situation, which I took as the ending of a war.
Yeah.
So that was mine. And you were picking up on the same female entity in the...
And I'm also picking up that there was a lot of breathing problems in there because of the tunnels.
Okay, so a lot of respiratory issues.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that was really quite similar, I think, in the sense that we're both picking up on a female figure in that hospital area that was doing it for the love of work and not money, and feeling trapped and feeling that loneliness and seclusion. We head back to the hospital area to meet up with Carl and continue the investigation. It was time to see if we could get any interaction on the REM pods and millimeters. So what I'm going to do is, this is a REM pod. It's a radiating electromagnetic pod. And basically it has a telescopic antenna. And as you can see, if you go near it, it will set that off. Depending on how close you get to it, it will light up different lights and different colors. From our reading that we did with the tarot cards, which might seem a bit strange to you, we kind of got this feeling that you brought a lot of joy and a lot of sun into a lot of people's darker days. We're addressing the matron that's here. However, if there are any patients or anyone else, anybody, it's completely open to anybody in this space. What was that?
What was the flash?
What was that flash?
That wasn't the REM pod, was it?
No.
That was behind Alex.
No, that was from in
No.
there. That was right.
That was right behind Alex.
I am looking
What?
straight
That
at
was like somebody took a photo.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. in my
Me
life.
neither.
Okay, thank you.
I'm getting cold shivers.
Wow.
You're getting cold?
Wow.
Yeah.
That was like a blinding flash.
That was incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I can all of a sudden literally see my breath. It's gone so cold.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much for... While we didn't capture this bright flash on camera, we all witnessed it behind Alex. It was almost like somebody took a photograph of us. This, coupled with the activity on the REM pod, as well as the intense drop in temperature, means that somebody else is with us in this room.
Do you want me to move from where I'm currently standing because I'm in your way?
If he's in your way, could you make it light up again? Go near that antenna.
Getting spikes on the gallery.
That's the temperature changing.
Maybe it's just an indication that yes, she's here. It's
Possibly.
just getting stronger. Every time we're here, she's getting stronger.
What did you get? Sorry, Carl.
We got a change in the
Hello.
milligauss
Thank you.
again.
Can you
as the
just-
red pod go off.
Can you step? Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for interacting with any of this equipment. We really, really appreciate it. It's, oh my gosh, I literally feel like somebody just walked up straight behind me. Oh, that felt horrible. I suppose you guys are trying to check us out as much as we're trying to interact and understand who you are. So I only think it's fair. Could you step back? That's going nuts. Thank you for that.
See if we've got anything on your recorder.
Yeah, let's play this back, guys. That sounds like a static thing. So this is what I was saying. I don't know if this is paranormal in the sense, I mean, when you get things like that and you're like,
What did that say?
it's not clear enough to make out. But the thing is, it's not supposed to record anything at all. At all.
Let go.
Yeah. Let go. Yeah. Hear that? This is that. Like whispery. Let go. Here. There.
I can hear what you're saying, but the only thing that's confusing me, if you listen, it seems to be going in waves constantly, up and down, up and down. So I don't know what has triggered that to do that, unless it's static.
Yeah.
Could be a static burst. That.
Oh, that's horrible. You mean like that?
That's horrendous.
What is
Whether that's
that?
paranormal
That just
or
gives
not,
me
that's
the
horrendous.
chills.
After capturing the EVP saying "let go" in the hospital area, as well as the static that we had recorded, we decided that it was time to head over to the canteen to continue the investigation. Several hours of investigating in the canteen turned up nothing. We decided to use several investigating techniques using an S-Box as well as live listening to EVP, but received no responses. It was time for us to pack up and get some decent sleep. We had a long week ahead of us, and this was just night one.
Tonight's investigation was really interesting, seeing what the others picked up. Unfortunately for myself, I didn't see the flash in the hospital wing that the others did. As we head into tomorrow's investigation, we're going to do some lone vigils, which is making myself a bit nervous. Last time I did an investigation, I kind of freaked myself out, so I'm hoping not to do that this time.
Tonight's investigation was interesting. There were several things that happened in the hospital area, the really high EMF spikes, the strange flash that we still have to recreate and try and explain. It was really bizarre. Tomorrow night's investigation, I think, is making the entire team really nervous, and only because we've decided to do several different lone vigils. And for these lone vigils, we're going to do things like Alex is going to head to an area where somebody was pulled through a hole in the wall. Carl is going to revisit a place that he had his most terrifying experience of being scratched. For Corinne's lone vigil, we're going to put her in an area which Sid, the owner of Drakelow Tunnels, had mentioned that women tend to get felt up a bit. It's a really ominous place. It's near the canteen. So we're going to have her do some photography and see if she can capture anything, and perhaps maybe have a little bit of interaction of the physical kind. For myself, I'm going to be doing a bit of a music experiment. There's a spirit in this area that seems to like listening to 1940s music. So my idea is to take a guitar and sit at the crossroads, play some guitar, do some recordings, set up a few different millimeters, REM parts, that sort of thing, at the crossroad junction, and see if we get any interaction at all. After night one investigating here at Drakelow, it hasn't been as active as I would have liked. I was hoping that we would have a bit more interaction in the canteen area. It seemed a little bit flat to me in that particular area, so we might want to revisit that over the next few days here.
Tonight's investigation was interesting, to say the least. We experienced a really strange light anomaly. It was like a big flash. I've never seen anything quite like that before. Overall, I expected a bit more, but it is only night one. The canteen was quite flat, but the hospital was very, very interesting. For tomorrow's investigation, I have decided to spend some time alone in the canteen. The reason I am doing this is because there's been reports of females in particular getting touched, so I really want to test that out and see if anything happens to me. While I'm in there, I'm going to be taking some photos and doing some experiments with them just to see if I can get any reactions or capture anything interesting.
Tonight's investigation, from my point of view, was very, very interesting. The static burst that we heard on the dictaphone or the EVP recorder was quite interesting because it felt like it could have been something in the room. I think the most interesting thing that happened this evening was the blue flash that we saw. And it was quite strange because Corinne and MJ saw it from one angle. I saw it from a different angle. Tomorrow night's lone vigil. I'm a bit apprehensive, to be truthfully honest. I'm going to an area which I've had experiences, some not pleasant, so I'm really going to have to push myself to go through it.
There is no doubt that there is something paranormal going on in Drakelow Tunnels. This was just the first day of interviews and investigating. My team and I will be returning tomorrow to find out more.